Is anybody has any issue with listening to me right now? Because Shaker is complaining about the audio.
Yeah, actually, because I'm getting some problem. While you're speaking, it's breaking.
Is it Shaker? What about others?
Yeah, it's me, Shakir.
Okay, Shakir. Okay, Shakir Sheikh. Okay. How about others? Nick, are you able to hear me properly? Nice and clear? Okay. Shakir, it might be something at your end, internet connection, because everybody else is fine.
Okay, fine. Now it's okay, fine.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so Nick has done basics. Kiran has basic knowledge in Java. That's good. How about Raja, Komal, Sai Komal, Kaushik? You can just write like it's saying quickly, write me a line informing about your knowledge on programming. Because today okay, so there are people who have, okay. Okay, good. So let's start, guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the very basics of programming today. We're going to do a session on Apex. So it might be for some of you might be repetition, some of you might find something new. But I wanted to cover basics because some of you are complete beginners in programming. So let's start. So first of all, what is Apex, or what is a programming language? So programming language. Can anybody tell me what is a programming language? So a programming language is basically a language that is used to communicate with the computers. Now, as computers, they only understand a language of 0 and 1. And as a human beings, we are not that comfortable with numbers, right? We're not. If I ask you to remember somebody's name, it'll be easy to remember it than remembering somebody's phone number. We're not that good with numbers. So computer only understand a language of 0 and 1. That's all. That's all they know. But as human beings, we cannot program in zeros and one because it's very difficult. So after a couple, so they started with zeros and one, then there was an evolution of assembly language and so on and so forth. So now they came up with the thing called high-level programming languages, which is basically these are the languages which are very user-friendly. It's written in English, very simple to learn. And what happens at the back end is you as a programmer, you write the language in simple English, and at the back using interpreters or assemblers, etc., the same language gets converted into the binary format of 0 and 1. So it's like a win-win situation for programmers as well as computers, because as a programmer you are writing in a simple English language, whereas whereas at the back end the same language gets converted into the zeros and one. Okay, so that is what a programming language came from. So programming language is a language to communicate with the computers, and there are different kinds of programming language came up with C, C++, Java, etc. So now since we are learning about Salesforce, Salesforce has its own programming language called Apex, A-P-E-X. Okay, and so this Apex programming language is also a programming language, and it is used to work on the Force.com platform. Now Apex is very similar to Java, and the syntax wise, the kind of, if you have worked with Java, it is very similar for you. It is very easy for you to learn to go into Apex, because the syntax wise 80% of the things are very similar to Java. Okay, and that is why it is also called as a sister language of Java. Now, what is Apex? Apex is a strongly typed. Now, what do you mean by the word strongly typed? Strongly typed means whenever you are using something in Apex, let's say you're talking about variables, you have to define the type of the variable. It is a strongly typed language. object-oriented programming language. Object-oriented means it revolves around object. Okay, it is case insensitive. We'll talk about it next. It's a case insensitive, not case sensitive, which allow the developers to write programs to execute business logic on the Force.com platform. So Apex is nothing but it's a strongly typed object-oriented. Okay, so it's like strongly typed object-oriented programming language. Okay, Apex is. And Apex is very, very similar as compared to the syntax and everything is very similar to Java. Now, so what is the purpose of this Apex? So Salesforce comes up with a lot of built-in functionalities, like you can create workflows, you can create custom objects, you can add fields, etc. But there are situations where you cannot, where you have to perform a complex business logic, like creating workflow rules around multiple objects. So there's complex business logic that you cannot work according using the out-of-the-box functionalities of Salesforce. So in those cases, what you do is you need a Apex. Okay, you need Apex so that you can write those complex functionalities which cannot be achieved using the out-of-the-box functionalities of Salesforce. Okay, now how this Apex will get invoked. Okay, so Apex is nothing but it's like it's a set of instructions you give it to the computer. Okay, so let's say it looks something like this. Okay, let's say if I ask you to make tea. So what will be the step number one? You're going to get water. Second number step, you're going to put tea in it. Third step is going to be add sugar and milk in it. So these are like steps of instructions. You're telling how to do this. Similarly, program is also a set of instructions that you're going to give it to the computer, and it is executed line by line. So the first line will get executed, then the second line will get executed, then the third line, so on and so forth. So it's like top to bottom approach. Okay, it's not. It's the instructions are not executed randomly. Okay, yeah, that is another thing. So it will be from top to bottom approach. Okay, so you write those instructions and those are written in the programming language called Apex. Now how this Apex will be invoked? So Apex is basically, let's say you have written some set of instructions and this is in your programming language called Apex. Now from using a Visualforce page or using any page in Salesforce, let's say we're talking about contact page. Okay, now you can invoke Apex by click of a button. Okay, you click a button, what will happen? So let's say I clicked here. What will happen is it goes ahead and pulls up that record, and you can invoke Apex by deleting it, by clicking on this button. So what happens at the back end is when a user interacts with the interface, then it goes ahead and get those instructions, the Force.com server gets those instructions, interprets them, and will give you back the results. User has no idea what happened at the back end, but at the back end, this is something that happened where you write down those instructions, then a user clicked on a button on a page, and then it goes ahead and goes ahead and execute those set of instructions and come back with the response. Okay, so this is what it happens. Okay, so the next thing is, so any questions so far, guys? What is Apex and how does this thing work? What happens in the back end? What invokes Apex? Any questions so far? And when you should use Apex? Okay. Now, when should I use Apex? So as I told you, a lot of time people are, when you should use Apex. You should never use Apex for things like which can be done using workflows or business processes, etc. You should never do something which you can already do using the out-of-the-box functionalities. Only use Apex when there is functionalities that you cannot build or cannot create using the out-of-the-box features. Then you're going to go ahead and take help of the Apex programming language to build that custom functionalities. Okay, now, so where you can use Apex, you can create web services. Okay, there are different uses of Apex. You can create web services. Then you can also create email services. That is the purpose of you can use Apex in these things. You can write complex validation using Apex. So you can do these things. You can write complex validation over multiple objects. Okay, if you wanted to validate multiple objects, complex validation, you can use Apex in that case. Now you can create complex business processes which are not supported by workflow. So you can use Apex in creating complex business processes. So these are the different places where you can use Apex. You can create transactional logic. When you have complex business processes, you can use Apex. If you want to create web services, you can use Apex. If you want to create email services, sending emails to an external system and all that kind of stuff, those kind of things you can use Apex when you have to perform one of these actions. Now, how does this whole code gets written and interpreted and all that kind of stuff? So when a developer writes and saves the Apex code to the platform, okay, we don't need an external. Let's say when you're talking about Java, you need to install a JDK, right? If you have worked with Java, you know that whenever you want to execute any program, you need to have a JDK kit. You have to first download it before running any Java program. But in case of Apex, all those things are provided to you by the force.com. You do not have to install any kit for Apex, anything like that. All those things are provided to you by the force.com platform. Okay. So whenever a developer writes and saves the Apex code, then what happens is the platform application server first compiles the code. Compiles the code means it is going to look for any syntax errors or any grammatical mistakes you guys have done. That is called compiling the program. Okay. First thing would be compiling. L. So first thing is, so you write the set of instructions, and then what you do is you compile those programs. Then what happens is, then this particular program will be converted into something called as metadata. Okay. Compile the code into the abstract set of instructions, and those instructions can be understood by the Apex runtime interpreter. So automatically this interpreter, you don't have to install, it is already given to you by the force.com platform. Okay, that is called the interpreter. And what is the purpose of the interpreter? This will store whatever the instructions you have given, will store in the metadata. Okay, this happens at the back end. First, whenever you write a program, you compile the program. Compile the program means when you hit the save button, it looks for any errors, is there a grammatical mistake, it compiles it. Okay. Then the Apex runtime interpreter is going to convert those set of instructions into the metadata. Okay, and then what happens is when a user triggers it, or when a user invokes this Apex code by either clicking on a button or going to a Visualforce page or whatever, anything that invokes that Apex code, what will it do is the Apex runtime server is going to go ahead and get those instructions back from this metadata and give back the result to the front end. Okay, so this is how the whole thing. So first it will get compiled, and first you will compile the program, then it will get Apex interpreter is going to convert them into metadata, and then what happens is when somebody invokes that code, it's going to go ahead and give you back the result. So this is what things happen at the back end. Now, very important thing here is, since we are using Apex and Apex runs on the force.com platform, the force.com platform is a shared resource. It's a cloud, right? It's on cloud, so it's a shared resource which is used by different organizations. So there is something called as governor limits. There are some limitations. Why do we have some limitations in Apex? Because we don't want one of the organization to maximize our resources, and then rest of other organizations are just waiting on their thing. So there is certain limitations that Apex has, that okay, if there is an organization, you cannot return more than 50,000 records in one transaction. So they have created something called as governor limits, and we'll talk more about what governor limits are. But since this Apex is running on a force.com platform, which is a shared platform where different organizations are using it, so there are certain limits that they have set up that only those that anybody who's using force.com has to follow those limits, and these limits keeps on changing every year by every release, but they have to follow governor limits whenever you are doing bulk modification of the records. When you're changing multiple records at a time, or when you're updating multiple records at a time, you need to follow you need to follow these governor limits. Any confusion so far what we have covered, guys? Please tell me.
You have a small question.
Yeah.
So if any the code, it goes to the metadata, and the metadata gets a compiled program.
So we compile. It's like it compiles the program and then it converts like a metadata. It's like I have never seen how it looks like, but it's like it's not the simple English language that we have written. It converts into its own set of interpreter language which interpreter can understand. So it's not the same as what we wrote. It gets converted into something else, which is basically can be understood by the interpreter and kind of goes through it, and it's more faster, so that when the response has to be sent back, it will be quicker. Something like that happens at the back end.
Okay, so any code that invokes it will just go get the metadata, and that will take care of the
so because the code gets compiled, it gets converted into metadata using the interpreter, and then it returns back you the response from the metadata. Okay, anything else? Anybody has any questions? So this is just the basic, what Apex is, what does do, all that kind of stuff. Okay, it's an object-oriented programming language. It's a strongly typed language, and everything that you need to run an Apex program is provided to you by the force.com platform. So you do not have to install a IDE. You can do it, but it has already been given to you by force.com. That's called Developer Console. And then you can write your programs there, all those interpreter and everything, the server, all that is built into the force.com platform. Okay. So the first thing is let's say anybody who's learning English, right? So in English, this is one of the very simple things I start with. Whenever you have something called as alphabets, right? You start with A, B, C, D. Now, then you jump into things called as words, right? And then words, combination of words makes paragraphs. And then paragraphs is basically, combination of words makes statements, right? You like a single line, etc. And then they make paragraphs. This is what the building blocks are. Like whenever you wanted to learn English, you start with alphabets, then you go towards, combination of those alphabets make word, combination of word makes basically sentences, and then you have paragraph. Similarly, in a programming language also, so these alphabets are the building blocks, right? That's where the whole English language is structured on, is those L blocks. Similarly, in programming language also, we have things called as variables, okay, constants, etc. Okay, and then those basically use of those variables and instructions, you make up instructions. Okay, so simply you have data types, then they have variables, and then you make it instructions, and then you write the program. So variables are like the building blocks. Okay, whenever you're trying to do any calculation, anything, the first thing you need to do is define the variables. Okay, what is a variable? So just like in English, you have alphabets, words, statements, and paragraphs. Similarly, in programming language also, you have variable, constant, keywords, etc. And then combination of these make instructions. Okay, instructions. And then combination of these instructions makes a program. Okay, so this is what happens in a programming language as well. So now let's talk about what is a variable. Okay, what is a variable? So variable. So in programming language, or just like in a computer, the memory of the computer is divided into different cells. Computer is nothing but it's a storage unit, right? You're going to store something. And so what happens is, let's say this is computer memory, and you might have learned in your college days that we talk about microprocessors and all that, 16-bit microprocessor, 32-bit, right? If you remember, if you're coming from electronics or computer, you might have learned about it. So let's talk about a layman's language. Let's say computer memory is divided into cells, and each cell has a memory address. Okay, so let's say a memory address is XX111, the next one is XX112, etc. So let's say these are the memory addresses. Now let's say you wanted to do a calculation of just a simple number A plus B. Okay, so what you need to do is you need one place to store the number A, right? What is A? A can be, let's say, 10. So you need a memory location to store this number 10. So what you do is you go ahead and use this particular memory location to store number 10. Similarly, you need to store another number. Let's say the another number is 12. So you need a memory location, and you're going to go ahead and store this number 12 in computer's memory at a different location. Okay, so this is the name of the memory location. So you don't have to go ahead and so make it easier. You're not easy to remember that, okay, at XX111, you have a number 10 in it. You can't remember that, right? You can't go ahead and see. So what we do is we kind of give this particular memory location a simple name called A, B, or whatever, and that has a value of 10 in it. Okay, so A is equals to 10. Similarly, this particular memory location, we don't refer it by using this big hash code number. What we see is, okay, this memory location, we call it as B, and B has a value of 12 in it. Okay, so, but why is it called a variable? Now tomorrow I can come back and say, hey, A is no longer pointing to 10. Now A has a value of 70. So since we can go ahead and change the value of A, that is why it is called as a variable. So where the value, it can be changed. So what is the purpose of the variable? Variable is just to store a value. That is what we need it, because we need, whenever you need to do any calculation or any kind of thing, you need to store things, right? So that it will remember. So similarly, so this is called a variable. Okay, you basically, you don't want it to name the memory location as that complex. Remember, hey, this 10 is stored at so and so memory location. No, I'll just to make myself easy, I'll say, hey, A has a value of 70. So there is a memory location, we call it as A, and that has a value of 70 in it right now. Tomorrow you can go ahead and change the value. That is why we call it as a variable. Okay. What is a data type? Now this particular variable, you can store a number 10 in it. Okay. You can have different types of data. You can store somebody's phone number. You can store somebody's email address. You can store somebody's decimal number. You can store large numbers. So you can have any kind of data that you can store. So that is why we have something called as data type. The different types of data we come across. Okay. So just like we have a number, a Boolean, decimal, integer, etc. Okay. Here a little bit different than Java. In Java we call it as int. Here we call it as integer. Okay. So there are different kinds of data types that are available. So the very basic thing is, whenever we talk about programming, the first thing we start with is variables. What is a variable? Think like this, it has a value available. Okay, guys, I'm recording the session, so if somebody has any doubts, they can go back and look at it, or if somebody is not able to hear me properly, I'll send you the recording tonight or tomorrow morning, so you can go through the recording as well, okay? Okay, so this is what a variable is. Anybody has any confusion of what a variable is? Because this is very important. The basics of programming is the most important thing, and the rest you can build on it, okay? That is what a variable is. The next thing we have is a data type. So data type is basically, as the name indicates, it's type of data. And you come across data of different type in everyday life. You come across people's age, you come across people's weight, you come across people's phone number, email addresses, all these different kinds of data types. So similarly, in Apex also, we have different data types. We have blob, we have Boolean, we have date, we have date time, we have decimal, we have double, ID. Nick, don't jump, don't go ahead. Okay, we're going to do all that. Don't worry about it. Okay, integer. These are called the primitive data types. Okay, long and object. So these are the different data types that are provided to you, string and time. Okay, so these are the different data types that are available to you by Salesforce has given to you. Now, what is a blob? Blob is nothing but it's a collection of binary data. Binary is like 1, 0. It's a collection of binary data, and that is what a blob is. Now, you can convert blob to a string also, and there are methods to do that. Okay, so they might ask you in an interview about what the blob is, how you can convert it into string, can it be converted into strings, those kind of things. So remember, a blob is nothing but it's a collection of binary data, And you can convert this data type to string, or from string you convert into blob. So there is a method called toString that you can use to convert, and a value of method will be converted into blob. So if you wanted to convert blob to string, then you're going to use a toString method, okay? And when you wanted to convert a string to blob, then you're going to use a called value of, okay? This is a method that is available. Boolean is basically to store a value of, a Boolean is Boolean is a data type that is used to store value like true or false. Okay, if you wanted to store yes or no, or something like you wanted to capture things like are you a green card holder, are you a citizen, those kind of things. Okay, so that's like answer to that is a yes or no. So then you're going to go ahead and use a Boolean for that kind of thing. Date, if you wanted to store joining date or sectoral, those kind of things, then you are using a variable of the data type called date. Date has no information about time. Similarly, we have date time, which is basically has a date as well as a time. Okay, that is what the date time, a value that indicates a particular day and time, like timestamp. That is what a date time is. Decimal is something which has a number that includes a decimal point. So, for example, 12.47. So this is a decimal number. Okay, a double is also a decimal number, but it is a 64-bit. So if you wanted to store a large value, okay, then we are going to go ahead and use a double. If you wanted to store a large value, then we're going to use a double. So Boolean is basically a true or false. Okay, then you have things like date is just like July 8th, 2014, whatever. So this is a date, okay? It does not have any information about time. Then you have another data type called date time. These are all primitive. And then that is also going to have July 8, 2014 at 12 p.m. or whatever. So that is a time also will be there. Decimal example is, let's say you wanted to store 12.27. That is a decimal number. Does anybody has any confusion so far?
No, Deepika.
Okay, Arun, can you mute yourself if you don't mind, please?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. Anybody has any confusions? Okay, so these are the examples. So similarly, we have double. Double is basically, it is a decimal if you wanted to store a decimal number, but it is a 64-bit. 64-bit means you can store large number. Okay, you can store a large number, and the maximum value of a double can be from 2 to the power of 63 minus 1, and the minimum value can be minus of 2 to the power of 63. So it's basically from this range to this range, you can store a value for double. So if you wanted to store a very large number, like what is the distance between sun and earth, okay, and it is in points and decimal, then you can use something called as double. ID. ID is, as you already know, that it's a 4-star, every record has a unique identifier. That is what an ID is. Every record, if you pull up like a contact record or a lead, every record has a unique ID to it. Okay. Integer, it's a 32-bit number. If just a simple number without a decimal point, it's called a integer. Okay, in Java we have something called as int. Here we call it as integer. Similarly, you have a long. Long is also of 64-bit, this is 32-bit. Similarly, we have decimal and we have double. Decimal is 32-bit decimal number and double is a 64-bit decimal number. Okay, one is integer is a 32-bit, long is 64-bit. So you can store large value in long compared to integer. Now, if you're using a decimal, then that's a 32-bit decimal number you can store. Similarly, you have double is for a 64-bit. Okay, then object. Object is anything in Salesforce like account. All these are considered as objects. It's like the main thing from everything you get kind of inherit. So it's like anything in Salesforce can be considered as object. Any data type that is supported in Apex, you can call it as object or something called as S object. Okay, so account, leads, anything, your custom object, all that kind of stuff. Then you have string. What is a string? Anything you write in single quotes. Let's say you write my name, Deepika. Anything you write in single quotes is considered as string. Even if you write a number, this is in a single quote is still considered as string. People don't get confused, okay? Anything you write in single quote is considered as string. Now, in Java, we have double quotes. We don't write single quotes. We have double quotes to represent strings. That's the difference between Apex and Java. In Java, we have double quotes, and in Apex, we have single quotes. Okay. Similarly, anything you write in single quotes is considered as string. Strings have no limit on the number of characters that you can include. There is no limit on that, but you have something called as heap size limit you have to follow whenever you're talking about strings. So there is no limit on how many characters you can add in a string, but you have to follow certain things called heap size. And then a time, if you wanted to store just the time thing, then you have a data type called time. So these are the different types of data types that are available. And if you wanted to use one of that kind of value, then you have to define a variable of that type. If you wanted to store somebody's age, you have to define that, okay, I need a variable called integer, right? Because the data type is integer, and then the name of the variable, let's say age, and the value of the variable. And if you do not provide the value, then any of the data types by default gets a value called null. Okay? If you do not provide a value, all the data types get a value called null. No matter it's a Boolean, no matter if it's a number, it's an integer, no matter what, anything if you do not define automatically gets a value of null. That is what the Apex does. Okay. Now there are two more which are not considered as primitive, but there are two different additional non-standard primitive data types. Okay, these are considered as, do you know, anybody knows what is these two non-standard primitive data types? There are two of these. You cannot use as variable or method types, but they are there, non-standard primitive. One is called any type. Okay, that might be a question in certification exam or something. Any type, and the second one we have is a currency. These are another two additional than the one we have talked about. These are non-standard primitive. The ones that we discussed earlier, they were standard primitive, but there are two different, any type and currency. These are two different data types that are available. Any questions so far? Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead. Okay, there's so many people joined today, so guys, let me know if you have any questions. We have not done a single example. I'm just giving an overview. Now we're going to do a very short example to illustrate what we have covered so far. What is a variable? What is a data type?
Deepika, can you please tell one more time the both variables which you mentioned right now?
Okay, so one is called as any type. The other one is called as the currency. So what is the purpose of this any type is, I have to show them an example. So basically any type is used in the force.com platform database only exclusively for S-object fields in the field history tracking table. So if you remember about the field history tracking table, that's where you're going to use this variable called any type. Okay? Especially for the field history tracking tables, we're going to use something called as any type. Currency is just to store a currency. And especially this is used when you're writing SOQL queries, etc. That's when you're going to go ahead and use currency. But these are considered as the non-standard primitive types. So any type is you're going to use when you're talking about field history. Currency is basically to specify a literal type of currency, dollars and all that kind of stuff. And this is basically used when you're writing about queries. So we'll talk about SOQL and all that. Where clauses to filter against currency fields. So that is what we're going to use the currency. Was it clear? Do you want me to repeat?
Almost clear.
Okay. So, so now let's go ahead and do a simple example to illustrate what we're going to cover here. So what is a variable and what is a data type? So let's go back. In order to, I hope everybody has a developer's edition account. And if you do not, then go ahead and create it. But we're going to use the developer console. Yeah, I'll provide the recording, but it might not be today. It might take about till Monday because I have to convert the recording into an MP4, and it's going to be a long recording, so it might take some time. So you probably will get it on Monday. Okay. So let's go ahead. So first thing is, so this is what the developer console is. And how did I came here? I went back to my developers edition and I clicked on this developer console and it opened up this window. Okay. And in the window, you can see here, you can create Apex classes, triggers, visual force page, lightning components, etc. So we're not going to do any of these right now. We're just going to go ahead and start with this simple thing here. Okay. So let's say I wanted to go ahead and write a program to calculate sum of two numbers. Okay. This is what my first thing is. So first thing what I need is, first step would be just think what you need. The first thing is, since you're using two numbers, you need to store those two numbers, right? You need to store the two numbers. So how many variables you need to store those two numbers? You will need two variables to store the number. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and first thing is we have to define those two variables. We're going to need two variables. Okay, if you wanted to also store the sum, then let's go ahead and need another variable to store the result. Okay, we'll need a variable to store the result. So whenever you're using a variable, since Apex is a strongly typed language, you need to specify beforehand what is the data type for the variable. Okay, so first thing what we're going to do is we're going to say integer A and B. You can specify in one line, you can do that, but you also have to provide the value. If you do not provide the value, by default, what will be the value of the variables will be null. Okay. So first thing is, let's define our first two variables. So let's say A is equals to 12. Okay. Then we have to define our second variable, integer B, let's say, is equals to, let's say, 50. Strongly typed. Okay. It's not strongly typed, it's strongly typed. Okay. So integer B we have defined, and A is equals to 10, integer B is equals to 50. So now what's the next thing is, so what we're going to do is we have defined a variable. So first thing is, this is called declaration of a variable. This is called a declaring. You specify the type of the variable, you specify the name of the variable, and you specify the value of the variable. Okay. You do not have to specify the value right away if you do not want to. You can either do something like this. You have defined a variable here A, and then later on you can specify the value of the variable is, let's say, 10. And all the statements in Apex going to end with the semicolon. Okay, so it is not something that is optional. You have to have it. It's a required. But we'll talk about for loops and all that, where it is not every statement is, but basically anything that represents end of an instruction, that is what you have to specify a colon after it. Okay, semicolon after that. So what we have done is we have defined two variables, and two value first variable is A is equals to 10, B is equals to 50. Okay, now we might need a third variable, right, to store the result. So we go ahead and define a variable called sum, and it is equals to A plus B. So what is A? A is a value of 10, B has a value of 50, 10 plus 50, 60. Now this is what the program is. Now what we want to do is we wanted to display to the user what is the result. So we can use system.out.debug. Just like in Java you have sysout, system.out.println to display something on the screen. Similarly in Apex we have a statement called system.debug. Remember the statement, system.debug. Okay, and this, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and display the value. So we can say value of sum is. So anything that you write in the single code after the debug statement will get printed as it is. It's a string, it will get printed as it is. Value of sum is. So the same line is going to get printed. And if you wanted to display the value of this variable, then you have to use something called as plus, and you're going to say sum. So what happens here is, so this thing is not inside of a single code, right? This sum is different than this sum. This sum is inside of the single code, so that is why this is considered as a string, and it is going to get printed as it is on the screen. And then you're using this sum. This sum is nothing but this particular variable which you have defined here, which is basically of type integer. So then what will happen is Apex is going to interpret from top to bottom. These are nothing but comments. These are called as comments. Comments are something is only for a developer's understanding of what we are doing in the program. It's not for interpreter is not going to go go through them and interpret them. This is only for the developer's understanding, and it is a good practice to have comments in your classes or in your code so that other instructors will be able to follow what you're doing. It's easy for them to understand. Okay. So first thing what we have done is we have defined a variable called integer a, and then we have defined a variable called integer called b, and then what we are doing is we are specifying the value of a and b, and then we are doing the system.debug statement to display the value of a and b. So whatever you write in the single code is considered a string, and it is going to paste on the screen as it is. And then this sum is basically a variable. So at the runtime, when you run this program, at the runtime, whatever the value of this sum is, it will get calculated and will display. Now what we're doing this plus for? This plus is called concatenation. Okay, it's called concatenation, means adding two things. So what will be the output of the program, guys? The output of the program would be this simple line followed by the value of sum, which is equals to 10 plus 50 comes out to be 60. So what is going to be the output, guys? Can you write it in the outbox window? What will be the output of the program? Everybody, I want everybody to tell me the output of the program. No, I need the exact answer. Like, I don't need the sum value. I need what will get printed on the screen. That's what I want. What will get printed on the screen? Very good. Arul, very good. Sakina, very good. Very good. Okay, so it's going to get the same line get printed as it is here. So let's go ahead and run this. So how do we do it? Comments are not going to get printed. Comments are not going to get printed because that is only for our understanding. So they're not going to get printed. So now we're going to go ahead and execute. Yeah. Any question?
No, I want value of the sum is equal value of the sum is 60. That will be printed.
Yeah. So now we're going to go ahead and say open log execute. It's going to say value of sum is 60. Since there is no space, if you want to add space, you can go ahead and add it here. And then it's going to have space. And this is going to be value of sum is 60. Now guys, tell me what's going to be if I go ahead. So this is a simple example. Now, you can write the same example in different ways. You could have just defined A and B up here in the single line. You could have specified the value up here as well, 10, and B is equals to 60, 50, whatever. You can specify the values right here. You do not have to do it again. So you can do something like this, and then instead of even creating this variable, you could have just said A plus B. You could have done something like this. Okay, and then you do not need this sum value. So you could have done a very simple thing like this. So it will automatically calculate the value of A and B at runtime, and it will display you. So you end up only creating two variables. You do not need a third variable. The result is still the same. Okay, now if I go ahead and do not provide the value of A and B and try to display it, what will be the output of the program? So if I go ahead and say A comma B, value of A, yeah, go ahead. What is it?
Do you mind just showing how you navigate through this browser, like where you're going through the steps, right? And this is kind of new to me. If you could just show one time how do you execute it and how you went and you did something, check debug.
Yes, so what I did is, this is, oh, okay, I'm so sorry. Just we get used to it, we don't even realize that it's the first time people are seeing it. So
yeah, using.
Okay, so what I did, so you understood, like I went to file, new, developer console and wrote the program, right? So what I did is,
I knew, okay.
Yeah, developer console, you went to the developer console, it will open this window for you. And then you went to debug, open, execute anonymous window. I went here, clicked on this, and then this window popped up. This window has an execute button, an execute highlighted button, and this open logs. Okay, so I wrote my program, and then I just said, okay, let's go ahead and do this, and I hit the execute button. Okay, and below here, all these are the instructions that executed. So you can see here, This is not a sandbox, this is like a developer edition. Sandbox is basically which has a copy of the production. This is just we're using a simple developer's edition. Okay. So here you can see this frame, executable, debug only, and filter. So all these are what got executed. So we're not interested in nitty-gritties of how the program returned, how many bytes got allocated, how many, all that kind of stuff. We're not interested in any of these. We're just interested in our debug statements. Okay. So we can go ahead and click on this debug only. So whatever was the debug statement we have written in the program, that only got filtered out. That's what it did. Okay. Clicked on the debug only, it will give you the debug statements only. The rest of them are unimportant because those are like what happened behind the pictures. We're not interested in those. We're just interested in the debug only section. It will display you that. Did you get it?
Yeah, now got it.
Thank you. So now if you do not provide a value, by default, what will be the value? It's going to be null. So once what we did is when we execute the program, the A got a value of null. Back here, debug only, value of a null. Okay. Similarly, even if you've defined a integer, or a Boolean or anything, any kind of data type, all of them get a default value of null. Similarly, let's do a simple another example to illustrate what is a variable, how you need to define the variable. Okay, tell me if there is an error in the code. Okay, so I wanted to calculate simple interest. This is a very favorite formula of mine, simple interest. Okay, so I said integer, I created 3 variables, simple interest, rate, time, and principal. Okay, and these are my 4 variables I've defined. Simple interest is equals to, no, not simple interest, I'm going to calculate rate is equals to 2, time, and principal is equals to 1000. Then I'm going to say simple interest is equals to P multiplied by R multiplied by T, right? And then we're going to go ahead and divide it by 100. System.debug. Okay guys, is there any error in the program so far? What will be the output of the program? We have to define the value of the t. Okay, we have not specified, otherwise it will be null. And what we're going to get is we are going to go ahead and we are going to get a exception here or something. Yeah, it's going to get an exception, null pointer exception. Okay, and it tells you exactly, people need to learn line number 2, column 1. So you have to go to line number 2. That's where the error is. So line number 2, this is where the error is. Now why there is an error at line number 2? Because you're trying to use something which has not been provided the value. So you're trying to use t here at line number 2, but you have not provided the value of the t. So you have to provide the value of t here. But the error was at this line because you're using something which has not been declared, not been defined. Okay, so you have to provide the value. So what will be the output of the program here? It will be equals to 20, I think. Okay, so let's go ahead and execute this program. So if I go ahead and execute, the output is going to be simple interest is, and then SI. Okay, so this is going to be the output of the program. The same simple formula I use, P multiplied by principal rate interest divided by 100. Okay, so this is what a variable declaration is, definition of the variable. Any questions so far?
Hi Deepika, this is Arun.
Yes, sir.
I live in Sydney. I actually missed the beginning of the class. The time is actually it's a massive difference. It's next day it's a midnight actually. It's a 1 to 3. Do you have any different classes, like any different timing?
No, sir. I'm only taking one class right now, and this is the only time it's gonna work for me.
Is it going to be only weekends or
Yeah, it's only gonna be weekends and on a Saturday and Sunday for 2 hours from 10 to 12.
for how long?
So the developer portion is gonna be about 20 hours. So we're gonna have at least for a month minimum.
For a month.
Yeah.
Okay, no. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, because this is the only time most of the people that I had in my class suited this time, so we kind of conducted on this time, and this kind of worked for me also because for 2 hours people usually get, because in the day during the office weekdays some people come at different timings, it doesn't work. You can what you can do is I'll have the recordings posted on the website. So if you want to just go through the recordings, you can do that as well. But if the time doesn't
So
suit you.
is it going to be the same like what you're teaching now? Or?
Yeah. So this is I'm going to put recordings of each lecture on the website. Just like I have it on there's two courses, admin course and the admin live. Live is was the recordings of my live classes that I took earlier before this class. So those are the recordings for those, and then I'm going to put a separate one for people who are only interested in the development.
Okay, so if I get any questions, so do I need to send an email to you or?
Yeah, you can, there's a comment section at the end of every lecture, you can post it, or you can just email it to me and somebody will kind of respond back to you through the email.
All right, no worries. Thank you.
No worries. Okay. See, Shekhar, the thing is, since everybody is professional here, I'm not going to cover each and everything in the class. That's like, you can't do it. The Salesforce is huge. I'll try to cover as much as possible with what is important perspective of the interview and all that kind of stuff, but you need to put a lot of effort on your own as well, going through trailhead material and all that kind of stuff. But we will be covering most of the stuff, but there are still, you need to go ahead and learn things on your own as well, including the class. Class is just to kind of give you more heads up and kind of make it more easier for you to understand, but it's not going to be not like everything you can't go through the Apex developer guide but I'll try to cover it as much as possible. It might get extended than 20 hours, but yeah, but we're trying to keep it things like I'll try to follow the developer guide of Salesforce, but we can't follow to the core because it's huge.
No, actually I'm new in this field. I'm just asking, I'm not talking about the all syllabus. So will it be covered or will it be make us, for the paper of the interview purpose?
So come again, what is your question?
Suppose we attended 20 hours and if suppose it's extended and suppose preparing us for the interview purpose, so will it be okay for us?
Yeah, but it'll be okay for you to kind of, you'll be able to understand it, but you still need to work on your work, because if there are people who are just come beginner in programming, they need to work a little more harder than people who are coming from programming. Because
so we will be having projects, right, which you will be providing us.
We'll cover projects, will be like a simple project at the end of the course, but when we are proceeding, we are going to take one thing at a time and go through them. So let's say, because if I go ahead and write a project in front of you, you won't be able to understand what it is. So let's say I created a project which uses constructors, classes, interfaces, and I just go ahead and write the code. You guys won't be able to understand what is a constructor. I have to, so first two, 3 lectures, we're going to learn things individually. Okay, like this is a constructor, this is an interface, this is how we extend classes, all that, and one step at a time. And then once we know what each of those things are, then we can do a small project explaining most of the things together, how interfaces work, how a visual force, but at the end. But for the beginning, for next 2-3 classes, we're just going to take one thing at a time. We talk about what is interface, what is inheritance, what is a variable, what's all that. But After those, we are done with those, then we'll do a simple project which is basically going to cover everything together. This is what the approach is. And there are certain limitations because since I'm using a developer edition, I cannot show things like how to deploy, because for those kind of you need professional and all that kind of editions. So I'm not going to show you that, but you'll be able to understand code, figure things out, and write on your own. That is what my goal agenda would be, that you'll be at that part. I want to be a little transparent. I'm not going to like, hey, we're going to cover everything. No, we can't. It's impossible. But I'll try to do things, make it easy for you, especially people who are from known program will be very helpful. And then I'll also share some resources that you can learn on your, like from Monday to Friday, you can take your time and learn about it so that you'll be better than others. But programming is something that comes with experience. So if you work, you learn all that. So this is what the agenda is going to be, because people say that, hey, why don't you show within project? But the thing is, with the project, you have everything combined and you don't know what a constructor is. You don't know what we are doing here. You don't know what is a static method. So I'll first cover those basics, and then we will, once we are familiar with all those topics, then I'll definitely do a small project where we'll kind of understand what we are doing, reduce all of those. That is what the agenda would be for the
So provide us also assignment or the assignment of the project.
So the assignments would be at the end, but daily I'll provide you like resources that you can learn from Trailhead that I'll recommend. Those kind of things I'll give you. But I'll give you like small assignments like, hey, creating classes, or what is creating loops, all that kind of stuff. Small individual ones, 3 to 4 examples after the class. Those kind of assignments, okay? So I'll do that, because for the dev admin it was a little different. For development, you need to practice. You need to get your hands dirty. So I'll provide as much as I can some examples so that you can do it on your time, so you know what you're doing. And if you don't get the answers, you can Google it and try to get the answers for those questions. But I'll definitely will give you examples at the end of the classes so that you can do it in your own time. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. So we did what is the declaration. Now the next type we have is a little bit called collections. Okay. Anybody know what a collection is? So any questions on declaring a variable, defining a variable, data types, all those things? Okay. So next thing we will talk about is collections. So what is a collection? So far, all those data types that we talked about, like integer, then we have Boolean, those can have one value at a time. Okay, let's say calculating average, it's like storing one value. But let's say I wanted to store a collection of numbers. I wanted to store names of all my students in my class. Okay, let's say there's a requirement where you have 25 students in a class, and I wanted to store the names of each of the 25 students. So one way is you're going to go ahead and create 25 variables, and each variable will have one student's name. That is not a good practice, right? You're not going to create 25 variables. Those kind of cases where you know there is a specific type of data that you need to store, but it's a collection of data, then you're going to go ahead and use list. Sorry, Nick. You're going to go ahead and use collection. Okay, collection is going to be a group of elements that you do. Now, a collection is of 3 types. Okay, in Apex we have 3 different types of collection. We have list, then we have set, and the third one we have is a map. Okay, so all of them is a collection of elements, a group of elements, a list, a set, and a map. Now, why do we have 3 different? Because each of them has its own significance. List is an ordered collection of elements. Okay, list is an ordered collection of elements. Let me write it down. So in a collection, we have is of 3 types. Okay, is a collection is of 3 types. One is a list, the second one is a set, and the third one we have is a map. Okay, what is a list, what is a set, and what is a map? A list is a ordered collection. Ordered collection means as you add elements in a list, those elements will get added in an order. So let's say you created a list of student names, and you started with, let's say you created a list here, and then you wanted to add, first you added Ram, then you added Nick, then you added Steve, etc. So what happens in it, if you created a list, the RAM will go at index of 0. So everything in list starts at index of 0. Okay, so Ram will be the first person, so he will go at index 0. Nick is the second person, he'll automatically go at index of 1. So it is an ordered collection. So Nick would be at the second place. Then Steve would be at the index of 2. Okay, indexes start with 0, so Steve. So this is an ordered collection. But in list, you can also have duplicate values. So I can have another Nick. So that will get added up here at the index of 3. Okay, so there can be duplicates. What is this set? Set is an unordered collection. Okay, you don't know what's going to happen. So it's a set is an unordered collection, but you cannot have duplicates. You can only have unique elements in a set. That means if I create a set of these names, only the first 3 names will get added. Nick will not get added because it's a duplicate. Okay, so this is a set is a unique element. Map is a key value pair. Okay, it's a key value pair. So let's say you wanted to store countries with their currencies. So US dollars, we have USA, we have is dollars. Okay, then Australian dollars, then we have Indian rupee, etc. So this is like a key value pair. So you kind of have a 2 values. One is the key, one is the value. Okay. So set is for unique elements. If your condition, if your requirement is that okay, you need a group of elements but has to be unique, then you're going to go use a set. If you only care about the ordering, like how the elements get entered, and you do not care about duplicate and all that, then you'll go for a list. Okay, so there are 3 different collections: list, set, and map. Now, another thing is there is no limit on the number of items that you can hold in a collection, but there is a general limit on the heap size. So there is no restriction that okay, you can only add 10 elements in a list. There is nothing like that. But there is a limit on the heap size that okay, this is the maximum that you can go. So that is what the list is. And also you can create a nested list. Nested list means list of integers. You can have it nested, once inside the other. Okay, that is a nested list. But you can only go up to 4 level deep. We'll talk about nested list also, but you can go up to 4 levels. And that means we can only have like 5 level of nesting. So you can do something like here, list of list of list of list of integers. Okay, so you can do something like that. You can only go 4 levels deep. So total you can have up to 5. All of these collections can go up to 4 levels deep. You can nest those collections. So let's start with taking an example on what is a list here. Okay, so let's say we will go ahead and first create a list and we'll do an example on that. So first thing is how we are going to declare a list. So whenever you are using any variable, list is nothing but it's a data type. Okay, it's a data type. List of, you have to specify what kind of elements you're going to use in that list. Are those elements going to be of integer type? Are those elements going to be of type string? Are those elements is going to be, you're storing a list of accounts? You have to specify the data type. Okay, list of integer, list of accounts, list of contacts, list of opportunities. List, so you're predefining here that okay, I'm using a collection of a list. It's of type integer. So the elements you can only add can only be of type integer. If you try to add a string, you're going to get complaint. Okay, it's going to complain to you that hey, you can't define, you have created a list of integer, you're trying to add a string value, it is not allowed. It will tell you right away. Then the name of the list. Okay, you can have list of states in India, you can have list of currencies, you can have list of students' names. You have to specify the name of each of the lists. So let's say I am creating a list of string and it is called country names. Let's say the list is country list. Okay, I'm sorry about the writing. So I'll say list, I'm specifying this is the type of my list, is going to have string elements, the name of the list. So this is the name is equals to new. New is basically will construct a list for you. New and then the same thing. New list of string and then this thing. This is the way to declare a list. Okay, so let's go ahead and do an example here. There are different ways, but this is one of the way to declare it. So you're going to say list of string, the name of the list. So let's say student names, that is the name of the list. New of list, and then you're going to say triangular braces string, and then you're going to use this. So this is the way that you have to declare a list.
Deepika, why did we put a name is equal to, that's a name, that is equal to new means is, so every time we declare that it's a new, or if
So
you're
this
using a,
is like a operator in Apex called new. It is used to construct a list for you. Like right now, this line has created an empty list. So let's think like this. Okay, let's think like this, that okay, in what happens in the computer memory, it created something like this. It's just created an empty list. It has not preoccupied any spaces, but it's created a list. So it created like an empty space for you to enter elements. That's what it has done. Did you get it? So this new has created an empty space for you, and it has assigned it to this variable. So this list is, name of this list is student name. This is the name of the list is student name. This is what it has done. This first line has created, so the right side has created a list for you. Okay, this particular thing has created a list. Only elements you can add in the list is of type string. The name of the list is student name.
so new list designates that this list is, it's an empty list.
Right? Yeah, because we have not provided any values here. Okay, yes, this is an empty list right now. Okay, if you wanted to add the elements to this list, you can use a method called add. So you are going to say student name, the name of the list, which list you want to add, and you're going to use a method called add. And since this is a list of string, I will only add string names here. So I'll say Steve. Similarly, you can do multiple names here. Mike, John, Adam. Okay, so these are the different names that you have added. So what happened is, how the representation of this list is. So first thing is, we created a list here. So first line, we created an empty list. That's it, what we done. Okay, the first line has just created an empty list. The same was student.add.steve. So first, what will happen is, the Steve will go at index of 0. It won't go randomly at anywhere. It will go at index of 0 because it is a list. The second name will go at index of 1, which is Mike. So the Mike will go here. This is an index of 1. Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry for the interruption. This is Monesh.
Yeah, tell me.
In the list, in the string, that is a data type. You mentioned data type. Every time we mention data type, or our objects, everything, we can list one of the object, and
Yes.
in that case.
So you can do something like this also.
So not a we can mention data types, or what is that string?
So string is a data. So basically, you have to tell Apex that what elements you're going to put in that list. Are those elements going to be integers? Are those elements going to be account? Are those elements going to be of type double? You have to specify that. So that string is a data type. Yeah, so it's a data, but you can also do this list of accounts. You can say, hey, I'm going to create a list which will only have
contact.
Exactly.
Contacts.
You can even create a custom object. Let's say you created a custom object called books. So you can go ahead and say book __ C. So that list will only have type of book object in that list. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So right now what we have done is we have added 4 elements, and since it's a list, it will add an ordered collection, and but that is not the case with the set. Set is not going to be like this. Okay. So going back here, the next John and Adam, excuse me. So John and Adam here, 2 and 3. Steve, Mike, John, and Adam. So this is a list. So now if you want to display the elements, let's say if I say I wanted to see what element is at location number, what element is at, what is the value, let's say if you want to do something like this, system.debug, and you want to retrieve. Okay, so you already know that they are going by indexes 0, 1, 2, 3. So you can say something like the element at index 0, and you can say plus is equal to, you can say, you can use a method called get student name dot get And then we can specify the index, so we can say the index 0. So what will be the value of this? What is going to be the output of the program, guys?
Steve.
What about others? What will be the output of the program? It's going to be Steve. So if you go ahead and execute this program, it's going to go ahead and say the list at an element at an index of 0 is Steve. Okay. Similarly, you can do the same thing. You can write it. What is an element at index 2? So you're going to go ahead and say 2 here, and then you're going to go ahead and say 3, and then 1 and 1. So what will be the output here? This is going to be Steve. What will be this line? What will be the output here? John. What about the next line? Adam. What about the next line? Mike. Okay. Let's see if everybody's right. Is everybody following me? Because if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. There is no stupid question. Always a good question. No, don't hesitate to ask. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and execute this program and let's see if our results matches. So everybody said, go to the debug only. Everybody said here. Okay, so the Steve, then John, then Adam and Mike. Okay, good. Now, if you go ahead and try to do something like this. Sorry, student name dot of add 100. What's going to happen here? What will be the output of the program?
It will error out because that's an integer, right?
Yes.
Right.
Now, yeah. So if you go ahead and try to do execute here, method does not exist or incorrect signature. So it tells you line number start understanding the errors. Okay. People just get panicked when they see error and they send an email. Hey, I'm getting this error. You have to look at the line number and see what is the problem. It will tell you add integer from the type list of strings. So it's telling you that you've created a list of string and you're trying to do an add of integer here. And I don't want you to do that. So you have to go ahead and get rid of this line and then I'll execute fine. Okay. So now if you can even add duplicates here. So it's going to say student's name dot add. If you wanted to go ahead and add another name here called hello, you can go ahead and do that. Now where will this element will go? This element will go at the index of 4 here. Okay. You can even add duplicates. Can you please mute yourself? The next one we can even add another Mike here. Okay. We go ahead and execute. So it's going to be elements of the index and it, wait a minute, what just happened? So let's go ahead. So here we have Mike at index of 4 and let's, oh, because we haven't printed, I think. Okay, so let's go ahead and if you wanted to calculate the size of the list, means how many elements are there. So we have a method available called size. Okay, system.debug and we can say size of the list plus is equals to student name dot of size. So these are the methods available inside of the list class. Okay, so what will be the output here? There are how many elements? We have 5 elements, so the output is going to be 5. Okay, so the output is going to be 5 at this line. So let's go ahead and execute. Go to the debug only. And then we can see the size of the list is 5. So in list, you can have duplicate elements. Okay, you can have duplicate elements. We try to add another Mike, it will go at the next one. Similarly, if you wanted to create a list of integer, you can do simple example, list of integer here. And it's called my list is equals to new of list. So if I go ahead and display the size of this list now, since you've not added, it will be 0. Okay, so if you go ahead and say something like this, system.debug, and I say size of the list, it is going to be 0 because we have not added any elements. Okay, so we have not added any elements here. Now what we do is we can go ahead and add an element, my list.add. So let's say you did something like this. You added elements 10. Oh, sorry, it has to be integer. Thank you. My list dot of add 20. Here, my list dot of add 30. Okay, guys, what is going to be the output of the program? So if I say system dot of debug, think carefully. Okay, what's going to be the output of the program?
It's going to error out. I just had that problem when I was doing it because it starts with 0, right? So it's we have only 0, 1, and 2. I'm just gonna. I just tried this thing and errored out.
Are you sure? How about others? What others think?
I'm pretty sure of that because it starts with index 0 and we don't have anything at 3.
How about, what about others? What others think? One person say it's going to error out. What about others?
Yes, she is correct. The third option is not available.
Exactly.
We have not
so
added.
if you're going to get something called as array out of bound exception, okay, or something like that. So it's going to be list exception, list index out of bounds. Why? There's not going to be null because you added 3 elements here and you're trying to access an element at location number 3, which is not there. So that's why it's going to give you an exception here that, hey, you're trying to access element which is not there. Because we only have 0, 1, and 2. So there is nothing present at line number 3. It's not going to have null value stored at it. No. It is going to go ahead and give you an error. You're trying to use a value which is not provided. Like you're trying to get an index of value which is not there. Okay? Is it clear, guys?
Yes.
Okay, now let's go ahead and do something. Okay, so this is so now what will be so there's another method called clear which basically removes all the elements. So let's say you wanted to do something like this. So what is the size of the list? If I go ahead and print the size, it will be my list dot of size, and then okay. And then if you wanted to remove all the elements, there is something called a my list of clear, and it is going to go ahead and clear all the elements. And then if you wanted to go ahead and display the size, and you can say something like so what will be the output here, guys?
Null? No, size would be like 0.
So then how many lines will get printed, first of all?
2.
Look at the program one more time.
Number of lines printed?
Yeah, how many debug statements will get?
I think it's 3.
Yeah,
Oh,
3
it
lines.
clears it. I think it just clears the whole thing. I think only 1, I guess.
Okay. Guys, okay, take a one step back. Start from the top to bottom, okay? First thing here, what happened was this line created an empty list, right? This is a debug statement. It's going to get printed. So what will be the size here? It will be 0 because we have not added any elements yet. Then we added our first element, which is 10, second element, which is 20, the third element, which is 30. And then in line number 6, what we're doing is we're displaying the size. So what is the size here right now? The size is 3. So the 3 is going to get printed. Now, myList.clear, what it does is it removed all the elements from the list. So now there's no elements present in the list. So what will be the final size? It will be 0. So how many elements are there now? There will be 0 elements are there.
Oh, got it.
Okay, got it? So always do top to bottom. Okay, always think like, okay, this is how the execution of the program is going to be. Start from the beginning, go from top to bottom. If there is any error, look at the line number, look at what is wrong, and you can figure out. Okay? So let's go ahead and hit the execute button and see if it verifies with our answer, or did I give you right explanation. If I go to debug only, go to there, 3 lines got printed, very good. And then the first is saying 0, then we added 3 elements, the next size became 3, then we cleared the list, there is no more elements, we removed all the elements, and then the final size is 0. Okay? Any questions, guys? I need to wrap it up early. But any questions so far?
No.
Okay. So we'll finish today early and I'll continue from the class tomorrow. So this was just people who have already joined, like Nasheen and Sakina and all them. This is not for you guys. For people who are today joined it, I already told you this is going to be the first demo session, which is going to be free. If you like the session, if you want to join, then please let me know tomorrow's class. I've already sent you the fees details and everything. If you have any questions, you can email me. But if you want to join tomorrow, then I would want you to have the payment done. If you didn't like it, that's fine also. Okay. But please make a decision by the end of the day so that if you want to join tomorrow's class, you'll be able to join. Okay, guys? My email ID is...
Hi, Deepika.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
This is Nasheen. I just wanted to share, I got my certification, admin certification 2 weeks ago.
Very good, very good, very good. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Was the training helpful that we covered in the class?
It was helpful, and I was learning also something on my own, Trailhead and Dot. All of that helped. All of that helped.
Okay, good job, good job, good job.
Deepika, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
What is the process like after admin? What is the priority for, like, is it Visual Force or Apex? What I need to learn first?
So we did a class on Visual Force. I think you missed it, but you're not. So we did a class on Visual Force. So Apex and Visual Force go hand in hand. Visual Force is like, so you can, I would say Apex, and then you can go for Visual Force. But Visual Force, there's 2 different things. Like one is just like HTML, but I would recommend you to start with a little bit on Visual Force. But here in the first couple lectures, we're not going to use Visual Force. We're just going to talk about Apex.
Okay, so what about the Lightning components? So
Lightning we're not going to cover. Lightning we're not going to cover. It's a whole different beast. We're not going to cover Lightning in this course. We're just going to do Apex and Visual Force.
All right.
Anything else, guys?
How we can pay you?
So my PayPal ID is info@mytutorialrack.com. I've already sent you the fees. So if you're interested, you can just PayPal me to that one. Or if you want me to send you an invoice or anything like that, I can do that as well. If you can just send me an email informing that you wanted to join, and this is my email ID, please send me the invoice, then I'll send you the invoice and you can make the payment to that. Okay?
Sure. So end of this sessions or this course. So will you make us aware on the force.com ID or something which is like a sandbox or something?
I'll give you, so I kind of give you an overview on the sandboxes and everything, but I'll try to have something set up for you in the meantime, like so that you can get a little feel. But most of the time we'll be using Developers Edition. But it's like, so those sandboxes is not like a huge deal. It's just like another environment every company has for testing purposes and just to deploy your code. I can refer you a document where it tells you how to deploy things. So you can just follow the document because we can't do that here since it's developer edition. But I can refer you with information where you can have. But I'll try to have a sandbox, but I can't guarantee you that we're going to have something live where you can
Yes,
deploy
correct.
and everything.
Yes, but the current market, the company requires the developer which having 2-year or 3-year experience. So
Yeah.
at their point of view, that we should know about the sandbox and how the project deployed and how the force.com ID work. So that's what I wanted to know.
So force.com ID, so the thing with I'm not using force.com ID is because I can give you one lecture where you can go through the process of installing and everything, but it gets so big by using this recording software and also using the force.com ID on the same laptop, it goes very slow. Like even I make a small save, it takes 15 minutes to go ahead and talk back to the Salesforce and come back to this. That's why I do not use force.com ID in my classes. But I can show you how to set up your force.com, how to generate security token, how to connect with all that kind of stuff. But the only reason I don't use in the class because it's a huge software and it takes a lot of time to load and run the programs. But those are the things I don't know why the people just get scared of those things. It's just normal. Just like you use an Eclipse, if you're from Java, if you use Eclipse, it's the same thing as force.com ID, is the same Eclipse. They just added a plugin. But if you want to go through the installation process, all that we can do it in one class. But we won't be able to use the force.com because it gets very slow. We won't be able to finish anything in the class because of that.
Actually, I'm scared about the project. I'm preparing for the interview, which I want to show for the 2-year experience. So if I collect all my questions, so the final my question is, so will I be able to face that interview after a month?
Yes.
Like if they ask about to ID and sandbox, how the project deployed, and the class and all those things that I heard about.
Yes, you will be able to answer those questions, definitely, because we'll cover all those things. We'll know all those things, but yeah, they do ask you about sandboxes, and we will, if you want, it's an important thing, and I can have my environment set up so that I can explain you. It's not a big thing. It's like half an hour, but I can make sure that I do that so that you will kind of know what sandbox is and how you deploy things and all that. If that is something that you would, I'll definitely can set it up.
Correct. That is my final question actually.
Okay.
So I am preparing for 2 years and I want to get into that.
Okay.
Deepika?
Yes, sir.
Actually, since we have a different timings, so I think I won't be able to join this time. So as you said, we have like a live sessions already recorded, right? So is it going to be same like what you're teaching now on
so what I'm going to do is
and Visual Force?
Yeah. So what is it so far? Let me go through the website. So here, this one, the Salesforce Admin 201 live recordings, is the recordings that I took with the other students before today's class. We used to have admin session before, so it covers all those recordings. So from today onwards, I'll also create a second course which will have recordings of each of the session, like today's, like Saturday, Sunday, etc. And every week we'll be adding the more sessions to that training. So you can enroll in that, and it'll be the same sessions. If you're not able, the timings don't work for you, you can just go through the 2-hour session that we have, that we just covered it in the class. Is that what your question is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll upload it here, and if the time